Okay, we are live.
Okay, I would like to start the Board of Education Student Achievement Committee meeting of February 25th, 2026 at 4:30 to order. We'll start with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I think before we go into public comment, I think we should all just go around the table and introduce ourselves. We could start with you first in this area.
I'm Kristen Allen, newly appointed to the Student Achievement Committee, former educator in RSD 13, and now serving in the Office of Dyslexia and Reading Disabilities at the State Department of Education.
Liza Siegel, Associate Director of Learning here in RC 13.
Sydney Leggett, Superintendent in Region 13.
Bob Moore, Board of Ed.
Linda Darcy, Board of Ed.
Lucy Petrella, Board of Ed.
Jamie Rohrbeck, Board of Ed.
Second
Go
item.
ahead.
Oh, fair name.
Yeah.
Oh, Elizabeth Ian Middlefield.
Hi, Timothy Deanne,
Well, and we have another board member coming online right now. We have Nick here.
Oh, hey, Nick.
All right, Nick. The second item on the agenda is public comment. If there's something you'd like to speak to, we have.
All right, you want me to come up and?
We'll get
I
you.
see it. You want me
You can.
Wherever you're comfortable.
All right, yeah. I can read from here.
Yeah.
The owl is good.
All right, so I'm here to express our concerns regarding the newly adopted graduation requirements, and that's policy 5127. My wife and I have both been educators for over 20 years, serving in a variety of different roles. Our primary concern at this time is the reduction of the English graduation requirement from 4 credits to 3. After reviewing graduation requirements across multiple districts in Connecticut, we were only able to find and identify one district that requires just 3 credits of English for graduation. So we feel that this place is Cognizant in a very clear minority statewide. Our daughter is currently a junior at Cognizant and is a strong student. When she applies to highly selective colleges, the high school profile will reflect that she is graduating from a school with reduced English graduation expectations. If she is compared to a similar qualified applicant from a district that maintains a 4 credit requirement, this difference may influence admission decisions. Whether intended or not, this policy change risks diminishing the academic profile of some of our students. My wife has been a high school counselor and college advisor for 22 years. Throughout those years, she has visited a vast array of colleges and universities. It has been made clear that the reputation of a high school plays a factor in admissions, most notably in high selective institutions. Colleges and universities require 4 years of English. While the policy lists 4 years as recommended, lowering the graduation requirement sends a message that 3 years is sufficient. In practice, that lowers expectations for our students. We were told that some students struggle to earn a 4th English credit and that this change may help them reach graduation. As educators, we find this reasoning deeply concerning. Our responsibility is to support students where they struggle, not to reduce expectations in order to move them through the school system. In fact, the students who struggle academically or those who may not initially plan to attend college are the very students who would benefit most from a 4-year credit in English. They are also the students most likely to opt out if it's no longer required. Regardless of student secondary path options, the ability to read critically, write clearly, and communicate effectively is foundational for success in college, career, and life. Even the Connecticut Technical Education Career System, whose primary mission is to prepare students for careers in the trade, require 4 credits of English. Additionally, student plans can change. My wife recently worked with a student who had every intention of going to cosmetology school after she graduated from high school, but in February changed her mind and wanted to apply to Central Connecticut State University. Had she been subjected to the 3 credit minimum and opted out of a 4th year of English based on her initial plan, she would not have met the admissions requirements when her goals shifted. This policy narrows options and limits flexibility at a time when students are still discovering their paths. And finally, we are troubled by the timing of these changes. The 25-26 program of studies clearly indicated that graduation requirement revisions would apply beginning with the class of 28. The sudden inclusion of the class of 2027 seems a little bit unreasonable. The shift from fine arts, vocational arts to visual and performing arts significantly narrows what qualifies. The previous category encompassed most, if not all, electives offered at Cognizant Regional High School. The revised category is limited primarily to music and art courses. Many students, including our daughter, have carefully constructed senior year schedules aligned with college preparation and academic goals. At this late stage, they cannot reasonably pivot without compromising some of those plans. So we just want to urge the board to reconsider both the reduction of English credits and the immediate implementation timeline. Graduation requirements should raise standards, expand opportunities, and reflect our highest expectation for our students, not lower them. We appreciate you taking the time to listen to our concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Along with the concerns we just heard, I wrote down, other concerns that came through some of our letters and stuff. And I will go through them. I had some questions. One was, with the English requirement for college, if a student only takes 3 and they need 4 to get to college, what happens then? Can they still get into college? Can they still, or do they have to take an English course before they can get in? I don't know how that works.
I'm thinking that, yeah, it also, we should probably do questions like that under like review and discussion, like we're still under public comment. So,
Go on to
Oh,
number
number
5.
5.
yeah, wait until we're probably in 5,
Oh,
I would
okay.
guess.
Okay. So let's go to, approval of agenda. A motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Jamie. All in favor?
Aye.
Hi,
Okay. Approval of minutes for the November 5th, 2025, meeting.
So moved.
Linda. In a second,
I will do it.
Jamie. Are there any corrections? No. Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
hey,
Good. Thank you, Nick.
You just.
I was not, yeah, I was
Yep.
not here, so
Okay.
sorry. Still big.
Kristen.
All right, we'll bring
Yeah.
bring it through it.
Okay. So
Uh,
now,
before we get too far, it sounds like there's a second microphone that's turned on. There's a little bit of echo. I don't know.
Lucy, do you have the meeting open?
no,
Let me check my settings.
No, it's probably,
Okay, that's working.
but do you have to mute your mic?
Mm-mm.
No.
No, because the speaker's only on, like the audio settings are only on
Al.
Val. Do you have the meeting open?
I can check this as well.
How is it now, Nick?
Is there still an echo?
Nope, because it's nothing.
All
right. It's good. I
Oh,
think
is
it's
it
on
better
my
now?
end. Yeah,
Okay.
Alright.
Oh, I think you joined the meeting twice.
yeah, I don't know how I did
We're
that.
very
but-
excited to be here.
Yeah.
Okay, item, number 5, the review and discussion of the graduation requirements policy. I kind of jumped the gun.
Yeah.
So I'll go back to the question. Does the change in English requirements mean a cut? No, that's not what I wanted to ask. When you go into college, if you only have 3 courses, 3 English.
Like in that example where you have a change and you want to, it'll depend on the college. So some colleges will say, we want you to do it online or a summer course. The high school could offer it through like an Edgenuity kind of thing. And some will waive it, so it really depends on their acceptance requirements and what they're willing to be flexible on.
Okay. Does the change in the English requirements mean a cut in an English teacher in this year's budget?
No, there isn't a correlation. I think that's one of the misconceptions that have gone around. So we could keep the requirement as for all students, and we could still propose a reduction in the English teacher just because it's a tough budget year. We were looking for any place where we could make a reduction. Since senior English is all electives, it's not like we have an English 12, all senior English courses are electives. We could reduce the English teacher, still meet our requirements, still meet enrollment. It would just increase the class sizes a little bit, but still below our limit. They would average around 20.
Okay. Now, if we decide to keep the changes as they are, could they be implemented only with the incoming freshman class as opposed to anyone that's a student now?
Yeah, this doesn't affect many people. I think we found that it affected maybe 2 or 3 students only. So there's 2 choices. We could say that these are going to be effective with graduating students for 28, or you could just say that the administration has the ability to grandfather somebody in if a conflict prevents itself. So it can be handled either way, but it doesn't affect a large number of students.
Okay.
And I don't know what the board's preference will be on that, whether you want to change it to 28 or whether you want to do the grandfathering.
Okay. Most of the concerns were raised. There was another question about decreasing the English requirements, limit the amount of electives offered to the students. I don't know.
It actually increases the electives,
Yeah, that was kind of the objective, right?
right, is to allow different pathways and it'll increase the options,
Many different directions
right?
with student engagement for sure.
So it doesn't have to do with lowering standards. It has more to do with being able to offer some flexibility of a pathway for kids who are trying to choose a different pathway. So I agree with you. I just have to say, I would never want to make this change to say that a kid couldn't reach senior English, so we're not going to offer it. That is unacceptable. I agree. This would be for students who are really pursuing a different pathway, which isn't the majority. It is still a minority. Non-college bound want to have maybe graduate with like an EMT or a fire, certificate or something like that. And they can put their electives towards those kind of things and meet graduation requirements, and they don't have the additional credit taken with the senior English. But it's not for the intention of lowering standards.
And and so we had this conversation, I'm like, it hurts my educator soul,
Mhm.
right, to reduce it. However, even for college-bound students, if a student takes an AP English class in their junior year and doesn't take one in their senior year because they want to take AP science classes,
Mhm.
like that AP, assuming they get a 4 or a 5, that AP English class is going to carry the same weight as 4 years of English.
Right.
However, that student's also a kid who's going to take 4 years. I think on both sides,
Yeah.
in a school like ours, it really isn't going to, kids are still going to take 4 years, almost all of them.
Mhm.
However, it does create room for some students to graduate on time. And if they are a high flyer and they want to take all these science classes, in a small school, you have APs up against each other all the time. So again, it hurts my soul a little bit, but
But it could be somebody who, like you said, loads up on science, math, or language, or, other kind of things like in their senior year. So again, it really has to do with opening up some pathways. The other issue that we dealt with is if we were to put the English 4 requirement back, and if we were going to meet the state guidelines of 25 credits, it has to come from someplace else.
Mhm.
So that means we would have to reduce a requirement in either, I think, humanities or electives. So, the trade-off has to come from someplace.
the state won't let us have, I mean, again, not advocating for it, but the statute won't allow us to require
26,
a grade, yeah,
you could, but that's what you just went away from.
right.
Yeah. But yeah, you could have more.
I also think because it's so new, right now, we see what you said, only one other district has 3. In 5 years, I think we're gonna see I'm not gonna say majority, but a large number who go to the 3. It's just their boards of ed haven't gotten to that policy yet.
Yeah, it's brand new
That's where
from the state.
That's where I was going next, because there's only one other school.
Yeah, but it's a brand new, right, and we happen to just go through all of our policies, so.
I do know, coming from the technical high school system, summer school is extraordinarily active with English literature and mathematics in the summer in
Yeah.
order to have the child graduate, just to say, so.
One thing I did want to clear up is the college entry. And I know you work with colleges all the time. I've done a lot of college panels on admissions, and they take, what they do is they look at your program of studies and they see if the student selected like the most challenging. That's what they really look at. So there won't really be a detriment to say Cog and Chog only has a base requirement of 3, they're gonna say, well, the student could take all four. These are the English courses that they could take. And what did they take? Did they take the hardest ones? So they really look carefully at the student selection to see that they chose a hard program, and a challenging program. And they also like college admissions is pretty amazing, right? So they look at things that they look at all different programs of studies. They look at schools that have only narratives and not grades. They look at project-based and no courses, all independent study. They take narratives from homeschool parents. Like they know how to deal with these things. So I don't see, I don't personally agree with the fact that it is a detriment to our high school. We're not gonna have a black mark on us because of this.
We have a 4-year English course. I mean, we have
You mean like English 12?
yeah,
No, there's no English 12, it's all electives. So they would take like an AP, they would take creative writing, they would take, what are some of the other ones that we have?
We had.
Those are the
creative
popular
writing.
ones.
Yeah, those are the popular ones. I have urban program studies.
Mhm, yeah.
They've changed last year.
But we don't have a traditional English 12.
What what does NEASC?
Exactly.
Yeah, what does NEASC, I mean, we did just finish it, right?
Yeah.
But still, but yeah, exactly. I'm just curious if it would be a ding from accreditation to have the 3 rather than 4.
And we're
I'll check
currently
with
on
NEASC.
accreditation at the high school level, so
Yeah.
we were considering
Yeah,
doing it
yeah,
for the
yeah.
whole district, but yeah.
I can check with them specifically, but I also would be surprised if the state made the change if it would hurt accreditation.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know. But I'll double check on that.
I would also think that since this is new, a new change by the state, that at some point the colleges might change their requirements for English as well in order to, because they'll know that that's a possibility that some students will take 3 and then go to college later.
And again, I think that might happen, but again, I think they're really gonna look at what that individual student took. What was the challenge level of their courses?
Yeah, it's interesting you brought up the struggle with AP courses. I don't talk about my kids, but it was a struggle.
Mhm.
Like, I want to do chemistry and this is my goal, but wait a minute, I gotta do the AP this, and it was a bit much, absolutely.
Okay,
well, if the committee wants, I mean, you could send this back to policy to have them reconsider
Mhm.
the implementation date. I think seems like,
that's, yeah,
I think that's
that's what
reasonable.
I'm thinking, yeah.
Yep.
And then it goes back to the board, so we have a larger group discussion, yeah.
we could argue, justify the implementation at a current, it would be a current freshman sophomore level, right? If you put it a year out,
Um,
so the 28 they'd be sophomores now.
right. Well, we were talking about either grandfathering or doing 28.
or-
So were
or
you talking
grandfather.
about maybe pushing it back even more like 29 or
No, either grandfather or
either one?
28.
Okay.
We can bring back the policy.
Yep.
With your recommendation of what to bring it to consider. Is there anything else on the requirements? I know we had some discussion about phys ed.
We just had to clarify phys ed. That was last time when I don't know if it was at this meeting or at the board meeting, but we had made an error in revision because there was something stuck from Google Docs in an old policy and when we deleted it, we didn't delete it correctly. So that's just an editing correction that we need to make. So the way that the PE, and that's our fault, I apologize for that. The way that the PE will be is that it's going to be a minimum of 1 and a maximum of 2. So at a minimum, students will have to take 0.25 PE or health per year, right? And then there are ways that they can get some credit for sports and then they can take electives, but there's a maximum of 2 credits total to count towards graduation. Again, if they've met their graduation requirements and they want to take more, that's fine. But what we didn't want to see is we didn't want to have kids saying they're meeting the graduation requirements with like 4 or 5 credits of PE. So like the base is 1, max is 2.
Okay, so has the policy been updated with that?
Yes, yeah, that was the revision that we messed up last time.
Okay. I see that here. Okay, so is it the committee's whatever, I can't think of the word right now. Does the committee want to send it to policy? We'll open up another and continue the discussion.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so we'll send it to policy and open it up to policy, a little more discussion.
If I can ask quickly, Liza, as people get selecting classes for next year, which happens when, in February right now?
Yeah,
Are we in
they're
that phase?
registering now.
Is this, would this affect that?
Well, right now we're saying,
Just sort of in the deliberation mode, we don't.
right, because we've only found it affects 2 or 3 students so far. And with those individual cases, we can either make an exception for your grandfathering to what was coming before,
I know
or
it's quite a matrix of scheduling. Once all that is done, that's a huge job.
unfortunately, we do see some kids who don't take a lot of electives junior, senior year because they're worried that taking an elective is going to actually bring down their GPA. Because, you know, they're not getting the weighted grade. So we want to try and pave the way for kids to take really what they, you know, want to take.
Item number 6, 10-year state assessment data overview. Nice.
Do you want me to pull it up?
Yes, thank you for sending that. Appreciate it.
1 sec to pull it up.
You display it or?
Not yet. We will, but it'll just take me a minute to pull it up here.
So as it's being pulled up, I wanted to bring the 10-year state assessment data here because SBAC started in 2014, 2015, and our latest scores are 2024, 2025. Of course, there are a couple years missing due to COVID, but that does span our 10-year assessment overview. The reason I brought this is it's really enables us to see any trends over time, and not just look at a single year. I have structured the presentation similar to what you would see in a data team meeting, which is to name the assessments, to describe, make sure everyone's aware of the assessments, then to describe what we see in that assessment data, then to interpret the data, and then to identify next steps. So this in a data team would keep the conversation evidence-based and improvement focused.
It's being tricky with what I want to open it, so I'm gonna leave it like this, but it's being shared with everybody on Zoom as well. Nick, can you see it okay? Okay.
All right. So the next slide is the assessments method overview. That just it shows what the assessments are that are included in the state. So we have SBAC and SAT for ELA and mathematics, and NGSS as our current science assessment. These are standardized accountability measures, and they are used in a secure testing environment in a secure testing browser. They provide consistency across time. They are one measure of student learning, and it is, of course, not the only one. So this is one snapshot in time. But we are focusing in this presentation on patterns across years from those 10 years.
You can move that green bar.
I'm trying to find the place to grab it. It's being difficult. I'm trying to figure out where to put it too.
I think up is better, because you
There we
just
go.
covered that. Even better.
All right, so district performance in ELA over those 10 years. You can see here the points here throughout the year. This is based on the performance index, which takes the SBAC grades 3 through 8 and the SAT in grade 11 and puts it on a 0 to 100 scale and then averages that throughout. This data was taken from EdSite, which is EdSite Public, which is open to the public to view at any point. And it is just a copy chart from the EdSite Public. Through this data, from 2014 to 2017, it was pretty stable in the 72 range, making a slight upward growth in 2018, and then a little larger growth in 2019. We then see the drop in pandemic throughout the pandemic as we have our score 2019 to 2022. And then there was some instability with a drop in 23-24, which you will see through all three next slides, ELA, math, and science. And there was a modest rebound this past year up to 71.2.
When was the new reading program put in? Approximately
23-24.
23-24. Okay,
It's also common to see a dip with a new program.
that's
Yes,
what I
Yeah.
asked.
so
Yeah, that's
implementation
why I
dip,
asked,
you-
yeah.
and I know that there was a large focus on the implementation of that, which may have taken away also from some improvements in other areas.
Mhm.
So,
Is that a cue for me to go to math?
no, not yet.
Not yet, okay.
So the pre-pandemic growth in 2017-18 and 2018-19 suggests that some of the systems for improvement were working at that time. The drop throughout COVID aligns with national trends. And when zooming out for 10 years, we see a small rise, but it is generally flat throughout around the 72 mark. And current performance from 24-25 is below the peak, but not historically the lowest in the decade.
In 17 and 18, the board made a major effort to exceed our DERGs. And so we had a greater push from our superintendent. Maybe Kristen was there too. And, we did make a major effort by curriculum and other things to improve those scores. So I don't know what the teachers did. I just know that we made a change in the board policies and goals, and superintendent followed through.
Next slide, please. So as we see for our district performance in mathematics, again, this takes the grade 3 through 8 SBAC and the SAT in grade 11 and puts them at a performance index 0 to 100. There was a stronger upward trajectory, 2014 to 2019. A significant pandemic related drop there, according to the Stanford report for the pandemic recovery. It was a loss of about 1.34 years, and that drop shows. And we have seen a less stable recovery than ELA. Math saw the strongest pre-pandemic growth, but it also experienced the largest decline. Math is very cumulative, and the interruptions can compound that, whereas the change in learning, the interruptions in learning can become, as I say, cumulative. Current scores are below peak, but within the historical band of earlier years. So we have seen disruption and then partial recovery. Now we're moving to science.
Before we do, what do the actual numbers mean? What 70.5 mean? Was that a target number for?
So 70.5 is the
Any
average
number.
score of students in the district. on a scale of 0 to 100 based on those different tests at different grade levels taken.
So taking the cumulative effect of all those tests is then calculated into a score of some
Yes.
sort.
Yes, so the third grade test has a certain range. And so that range is then put into the 0 to 100 scale, and made into the performance index, so that both the SAT and the SBAC can be compared together.
And the math playlists, it came into being,
As a result of that dip in 21-22.
so it came in between, 22, 23.
No, 24, 25.
Math playlists, they were here,
Started last year in fourth grade and expanded to fifth grade this year.
Just so I'm clear with my history too, my understanding was that it was the result of such a big dip in achievement that happened
Correct.
after that they,
Yes,
Started doing
started the,
yeah,
yeah,
okay,
but it was not, they were built and then they were implemented last year.
thank you.
now the scores for this past year, they should be in, or they will be coming in by June to be added to this. How long will it take before the new scores are in?
They're usually certified around August.
August, so hopefully next year we could see the results, the current results added to this, so that would make it 11 years. 11-year spread.
You're right, so 25, 26,
Yeah.
they're gonna take them
In
in
the spring.
April and May.
Okay,
And then it depends on the year, but sometimes they are certified earlier than others. But it's anywhere between July and September.
Yeah.
That they certify those results for public sharing.
What grades are doing the math playlists now?
Grades 4 and 5.
So the other thing is you can infer
Mhm.
some stuff, but because it's all these grades, like it's
Exactly.
definitely a lagging
It's hard.
indicator, right? I mean,
it's hard, yeah.
it's not particularly actionable. But we should still see some kind of a bump, but you never know because of the fact that it's 2 out of, I can't do math, clearly. I didn't even go here. But that it's not all the grades. And it's a number of grades, so that
Right.
is gonna have a minimal impact.
That's an average.
My kids went here and they got, one went to Yale and the other 2 were second and third in the class. And my granddaughter was salutatorian last year, so they're learning stuff.
And this is why it's just a general overview, and then, the district data teams, school data teams, we take it down further levels, all the way to our PLCs, which then look at individual students' data.
Mhm.
I think we had discussed this before, but as I try to digest these numbers, it doesn't look great. But we're small enough of a district where, again, it doesn't take but a few really struggling students to bring the score way down. So I have to keep that in mind, as you communicate with people. Oh, no, 70. But am I correct in thinking that? It doesn't take very many people who might be struggling to affect this whole number.
I would,
Not the-
I would say that's true. And when you have a smaller school, fewer kids can make a bigger impact. But at the same time, I'm not happy with where
Yeah.
either of these are,
So I
so
can say
we can do much better.
Yes, but
We should be doing much better.
I think it needs it right.
Is there a big discrepancy between, like the high needs students versus the non?
There is.
students?
Yes,
Yeah.
there is a discrepancy. So this is all students. So within EdSite Public, there is, all students, and then there is high need students, and we do have a gap.
Mhm.
And the gap, it follows this pretty clearly. So there is a gap.
And we intentionally need to figure out how to close that gap
Yeah.
because everybody has a gap with the high needs
Yeah.
students, but our gap is wider than the Connecticut average.
Okay.
Yes.
So we do have a specific concern there that we need to approach.
Is it
We
going
can
the
see
same?
future improvements as well, based on the fact that we're a bit more unified. And within one building, teachers can communicate much better and say, listen, I'm passing you off this group next year. I foresee nothing but good
Yeah.
things coming from that.
Yeah, and the teachers are very much looking forward to that for that very reason. I mean, other reasons too, but that's one of the main ones is being able to have that kind of consistency and flexibility within the building to work with students who have, more needs right now.
you take out the high needs, is the curve the same shape?
Yes, great question. Yeah.
Take out the high
High
needs.
needs.
Is the trend the same?
I guess you said it was.
You know, we have 22%, you know,
So
that range. If we take out that 22% is, you know, does the shape of the curve stay the same?
I don't
Do you want,
know.
we'll have to crunch
We'll
that,
have
I
to
think.
crunch that.
We will,
It's just,
yeah.
it was just.
Hmm?
It was just something I was thinking about is, you know, if. Is our gap low enough to change the curve, big enough to change this curve? And without that gap, is the curve still the same? They're still struggling.
We'll look, I think we'll do
You know,
it, like, we'll
yeah.
have to look at it and then
Yeah.
bring it back to you.
Yeah, you know what I
The
mean?
Yep,
state
I
doesn't
do.
report it that, so, I mean,
I,
I can. And we don't know all status of certain students, so I'll have to look.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just, yeah, if we still have the same level of concern.
So I'll throw out one largely untapped resource is our families and family engagement. And, you know, one of the reasons why math dipped more than ELA during the pandemic is because parents understood that reading to their children, it had an impact, right? And so everyone could do something. But so many parents had no idea, families had no idea what to do to support math. So if we can help parents learn how to support their students at home in math, there's a largely untapped resource that we have to have the families be co-teachers in bringing student achievement up.
And there's a cultural thing there too, like that I've worked with in schools for so long where parents, there's certain there's kind of a badge of honor, and I think a lot of people still do it is, oh, I'm not a math person.
Yeah.
I'm not a math person. But what you don't see is parents going, I'm illiterate. I'm
Right,
illiterate.
right, right.
I'm illiterate. Like, so we have to break that, cultural cycle of like, it's great to be a math person and everybody's a math person, you know?
And that actually would be something to some of the grant money that we have available to the teachers is creating kits that parents can check out with manipulatives, and they can go home and they can do all that with their kids.
Yeah.
And then, you know, next unit, return that one and take another one.
Yeah.
Yes, we just at at Brewster,
Yeah.
we had the school data team and they were talking about that.
Nice.
And we specifically looked at the screener in the mid-year and the lowest target areas and how we can support that at home, targeting those specific areas.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we're hoping to do that. I think that's a really good idea.
Nice.
And then just an understanding of like the common core practices versus the traditional ways. I hear from my brother all the time, like, I said, what is this? Like,
Yeah.
how are they doing math now? Like, I don't know how to support my second grader, even though I'm like in the field,
Right.
because it's a different way of how, a different explanation, how to break down a problem. So I think that would be helpful for parents too.
Yeah.
in terms of the
And the
traditional-
hands-on manipulatives.
Yeah.
Which I did speak to a coach and I spoke to several people regarding this data who were here when the pandemic occurred. And one of the things that the coach said was when students were home and then when we came back as well, you could not give the large amount of manipulatives. Students weren't sharing. You had one box.
Right,
This
right,
is what
right,
you
right,
got.
yeah.
And in those, to develop some of those early math
Yeah.
skills. It's
Don't
so
touch his
important.
blocks.
I know, it's so important to have that hands-on learning that, that's an area that we're really, refocusing on to make sure that that hands-on learning happens in math. So science, I included science, although this is not really a 10-year look. From 2014 to 2017, it was still used the CMT and the CAP assessment in grades 5, 8, and 10. And in 2017 to 2018, it was a pilot year of NGSS for select districts. And then starting in 2018, it started with our current NGSS. So that is why there is that black line there to show the difference in the tests that are not comparable to one another. And it shows that through, another thing to realize in science as well is that it is given in 5, 8, and 11. So year to year progress is not as the same as in the previous 2 slides, because they are different groups of students throughout. So just to be aware of that. Overall, through the pandemic, that group of students who took it in 2019 and took it in 2022 were up in 73.9, 74.2. Then returning the next year, that group of students that took it had decreased to 70.9, and then that following year, 66.9. Then we have the increase in 24-25 to 71.1. So we are on the upward trend.
Is there any reason why there was a drop after 22? Do we know? Really?
There was a grade level in 23-24 that scored quite low in science, and it was not indicated on any other sort of assessments like their unit assessments or anything like that. So we don't know.
Was it in elementary grade?
No, middle.
I'm just curious if it's because, coming out of the pandemic, the focus was on literacy and math. And so a lot of places put social studies and science to the side.
Well, yeah,
Are we using Open SciEd?
yes.
And did we, prior to that, were we using the CREC science?
Bundles?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you think that has anything to do with the jump, was the implementation of Open SciEd?
I would have to check on that. My understanding is that it was not fully implemented at that point.
Okay,
But I'll have to check on
yeah,
that.
I'm just curious.
I'm actually like, it's really unusual to see these higher scores around like the 21, 22 range, because science took a harder hit after the pandemic than anything else, especially with anything hands-on or inquiry or, those kind of things. So this is an anomaly.
We had a fairly aggressive outdoor education program, which may have accounted for stable in that year too, because they could do outside stuff.
When was that reduced though? When was that position reduced? Because we just talked about that on the curriculum document.
22.
22.
Yeah, right after.
So 22, 23, there was, that's when there was a change and loss in some of our instructional leadership positions.
Lost a teacher.
Hmm?
We lost a teacher.
The outdoor ed, the position.
The outdoor.
We didn't lose a
position.
teacher, just the position.
No, no.
Yeah.
You know where she is?
Yes.
She's still there.
She's not lost.
Yeah,
She's still out in the woods teaching.
she is.
Next slide.
Hope she get a new need.
Oh, yeah.
So key takeaways, as Bob alluded to earlier, growth was systems driven. As I mentioned, I talked to several people who were here throughout this time period. Between 2017 and 2019, the district had a 2-year push, which targeted work to produce curriculum with alignment throughout, to have structured data cycles, and to have shared instructional leadership with content-based instructional coaching. And there was some STEM and literacy instructional leadership as well.
That's when we started all the coaching.
Mhm.
That's when we started all the coaching.
Yes,
efforts.
that's when it
Yeah.
went. So prior to that, it was part coaching, part intervention, and then it was separated to coaching and intervention. The growth really aligns with the system coherence in that 2-year push. And so that period represented a system shift during that time. So then the pandemic interrupted those systems. The instructional delivery changed, such as I mentioned, you can't use manipulatives. There are other things that we're focused on. Priority was to make sure students and all in our community were well. That was our first priority. Some assessments paused, some collaboration structures were disrupted due to the need for separations of people. So those systems were interrupted during the pandemic. We do see recovery is emerging. Some improvement is visible. We are not yet at the peak. The highest scores occurred in that narrow window of 2018 and 2019. And current scores are not dramatically outside the historical range, but they are outside of those 2-year window with the highest scores. And then for next steps, which is, I talked about in my presentation in January at the board, several areas that we are trying to rebuild instructional coherence, reestablishing the aligned curriculum, consistent instructional practices, embedded data cycles across school. We're looking at strong tier 1 instruction with explicit teaching, data-driven teaching, differentiation, clear routines, small group instruction, and so on. Coherent assessment alignment. We have had some really good professional learning from ACES regarding some assessments and consistent collaboration as well. Strengthening vertical alignment, especially in math, is very important. We are addressing the cumulative gaps that we are seeing in some students, and we're focusing on that foundational progress through our curriculum development. We're really looking at the alignment and to making sure that teachers know what skills build within mathematics cumulatively to make sure that any gaps can be filled. And monitor and adjust in real time with our ongoing reviews, our instructional coaching, which has embedded professional learning, school collaborations, and responsive adjustments in real time. So when our systems are strong and coherent, our student achievement improves. So our focus is on restoring that coherence.
Always ask this question that nobody likes, but we ever look at who's teaching and what their performance of their students are in that class and bring the coach the teacher perhaps, or coach if there's failures in that area.
Yes.
We're doing that.
So if you look
We
across a grade level and there's a specific area that someone is doing very well, they will come to the PLC and say, oh, well, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And the other way as well, if there's someone struggling in that area, that's an area that the coach may address. It's an area that the team may address together, sharing ideas for improvement. So yes, that is looked at the grade level and the school level.
What assessment do you guys use now? I should know this. You used to use iReady, now it's IXL, or do you still use IXL?
So we're currently using iReady in 2 through 5 for math and IXL in 6 through 8 for math. We use universal number sense forefront for K and 1. Next year, we're hoping that the forefront number sense will be K through 2. The iReady will be 3 through 5, and the IXL will be 6 through 8.
Do the trends in that data, are they similar to this data?
They do fluctuate, but they do have some relation. Yes, there's an IXL study that we signed up for, which is actually they're trying to calibrate that to make sure that the IXL scores do work with our.
So we signed on in the middle school level to be part of that work so that we
Yeah.
benefit from that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in literacy too, or just math?
No, those are our math assessments.
Okay.
So we have DIBELS and K through 5 and IXL in 6 through 8 as our main screeners.
Which is actually maybe a good segue into our next agenda item, which is where we would usually talk about. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Um, Lucy had asked, and normally Liza tells me that she puts together like a mid-year data report of all those things that she's talking about, of IXL and Devils and everything. We have that report, but I actually asked her not to give it to you because, and we can if you want it, but it does not reflect what I think the committee thinks it reflects. Like we're talking about, and Liza can go into more detail, but when we met about it, those are really, more diagnostic things that are actually going to help the teachers figure out what comes next and where their kids are. It's not what we just looked at, which is apples to apples comparison of achievement time over time. So what I wanted to bring forward was a real discussion of what would be the right date. If you want to look at mid-year data, what is the right data to look at and what purpose do you want it to serve so that those things align? Because I think the reports right now actually don't serve that purpose. So do you want to elaborate on that?
Sure. So the universal screener, so just to give an example, the universal screener for number sense, we currently give in grades K and 1. In the beginning of the year, it is 10-question interview-based assessment. And in the middle of the year, it is 10-question interview-based assessment and 10-question written assessment. They are not looking for it's not the same test. So, an item in the beginning of the year, maybe count, name 5 numbers within 0 to 10. And in middle of the year, it'd be identify 5 numbers 0 to 20. So it is not the same test. So when we give the numbers, it's not calculated the same way. Like the first one, I believe, is out of 30, and the second one might be out of 40, and so on. Another thing is that does not show the growth. So when I would calculate growth, it would be scores. If somebody has improved in a certain area, and I can't calculate that because it's a different test out of different, and yes, I can calculate, did somebody move up? Then there's the grade band. We looked at usually bands of proficiency, whether someone is ready for grade level work. That I can give you, but again, that doesn't show the growth, because when you ban something like that, I was looking through iReady, for example. There's a student in iReady who was 3 years, was in red. So that correlates to 3 years below. They got one of the highest growth scores, and they're still in the 3 years below, because they didn't reach the band, but they made a huge amount of growth. So there's different ways for me to give this information, but I'm not sure it's apples to apples. So I'd be happy to give the information. I just don't know the best way to look at it while giving what we should be looking at.
I'll say personally then, the past, I just wanted to see some data to know that we were collecting any data, because there was not a lot of evidence of that. And so there's got to be there's something in the middle between that aggregate of all grades and such a lagging indicator to looking at where are our strengths and where are, the areas for growth by grade level. For me, what's important to me, and I am not the data queen, but actually, let me put it this way. I'm not the elementary assessment queen. Like, I'm a secondary person through and through. I want to know that every child in a classroom is improving. And so that's what I want to know. And again, that the whole banding thing is a problem. I had a teacher come to me in tears because she said, my kids have done so much, but it's not going to show, because they went from the bottom of the band to the top of the band and they worked their little butts off, but it wasn't going to show in the number. So for me, what I would like to see, even if it's, well, let me give you 2 things I want to say. I would like to see what percentage of our students are making growth from point A to point B, and you all can decide what those timings are. And if it's possible, like what is typical, right? The year's growth doesn't work because a year's growth for one student is different than a year's growth for another student. But I just want to know that every student is improving academically. I would also love to hear about, what your data teamings are. Like, are you gonna do short cycle assessment, check-ins, or how are you using the data? You know, again, there's a fine line or a balance between, being data driven and being data informed. And I think we see a lot of burnout among teachers when you're just data driven as opposed to data informed. So I'd be curious about what protocols we're using in, our data meetings. And hello, all of the little ones. Oh, and your associated adults, but let's face it.
I think, I agree with you. I think what we were looking for was, we want to see growth.
Right, and that's why we held back on this, is because what you were seeing actually wasn't showing where there's growth.
And we understand that, because you mentioned it many times, especially with the LA testing. It's not the same from the fall to the spring to the mid-year. To the spring. So it's, and I know that makes it hard to compare.
I'll do Sydney. I can be kind.
But I'm sure you can figure out some way to give us a valid report. Okay.
Sorry?
I'm sure you can figure out some way to give us a growth report that looks good.
And once we settle on something that is understandable.
Then it can be consistent.
Yeah, because, and comparisons, because otherwise it gets confusing when it's different at the time.
I
That's
also,
happened in the past, but I'm not saying that was you, but that's the way it's happened.
we also have, you know what, we also have our data team protocols, with our school data teams that I could summarize and provide as well. Which would then show how our data teams are working and the protocols that we have. So that's something that I could also provide.
That would probably be good to see.
I'm a big data geek, so that's where I'm like, I want to see it all, but, because that's what my job in the district work. I think the universal screeners in terms of like the literacy piece, because they're supposed to be early risk indicators. So are we detecting risk early and what's like, because we can get ahead of the game, so that some of our numbers don't look like that. So like, I would love to see like how we're using those universal screeners to determine like best steps for our kids. Then I guess in terms of like whatever is shared with parents. So like if board members, have parents reaching out to them, how do they eloquently talk about like the data that's shared with parents at conferences about like student achievement? So I don't know if we share the universal screening data with parents or the iReady scores, but just to make sure that as a community, we're cohesive in that shared language of like all the assessments that are given and how our students are doing, I think would be beneficial.
Just for everybody who came in, hi and welcome. I just want to let you know, we're actually in the middle of a Student Achievement Committee meeting, and the board meeting is going to start at 6, and you are more than welcome to stay, but I wanted you to know that this isn't the actual board meeting yet. We're just in the meeting before the board meeting. Okay, thanks.
Okay, so, growth, data teamings, protocols, and what is shared with parents.
Mhm.
Okay.
And we'll get that ready.
All right, so if we move to item number 8, discussion of online courses.
Yeah, so we've been getting some notices that the Connecticut State Department of Education is now offering some online approved courses by the State Department of Ed for specific electives. The latest one that I got was a history of music by Little Steven. And he wrote a whole course, with the Connecticut State Department of Education, so it's been vetted and approved. Given that, the question is, does this committee want to approve those courses the way that you would all high school courses? Or since they're already approved by the Connecticut State Department of Education, do you want to just say, if those are approved by CSD and offered online to our students, they can take them and they can be credit bearing? Or do you want to, go
I'm
through
in
this
the
thing?
office of the disability, so I don't know.
I mean, they would all be electives, obviously, right? But the question is, does this committee want to go through the same approval process for all of those? Or if it has the state stamp of approval, are you good with it?
My question is, how does our association feel about it? There's a lot of districts, a lot of the associations, like this is a way of undermining number of teachers because it's a course being offered outside of their association. So I have no problem with kind of automatic, well, having a different vetting process. I would like it to still go through this committee, because if it doesn't align with the core ethical values, then we don't want it there. But I would also want to hear from the association that, yeah, we're okay with it.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Done.
agree.
Our policy has a pretty precise control over what's acceptable. So we probably need to look at whether or not we need to amend the policy to accept it.
Mhm.
So, if not, that's fine, but if we do, it's something we ought to look at.
Yeah, I think it keeps some consistency and us at least looking at and then presenting to the board what's coming through. So we all know, you know.
Done. Thank you.
Do we currently offer online classes for anything?
Well, Edgenuity is the one that's online, right?
Yeah.
Which is a program that we, like the school subscribes to for specific student needs, like if they need an alternative way to get a course credit. But we
Gotcha.
haven't, from my understanding, done any CSDE courses.
Okay. So,
There was
yeah,
a time
I
when
guess,
Interest in certain courses, especially Latin.
Yeah.
And we had no choice but to offer that for the
Right.
few kids who did it. They didn't love it, no question, but.
Mhm.
yeah, I guess what I brought that up because if we have a system in place for how these classes are handled during the school day, like that's
Yeah.
as long as that's already
Just
there,
with
then
that
that's
system.
Right.
Okay. Item number 9, strategic planning and vision of a graduate upload.
Just a really quick update, and the board will get the same update, is that I've finished all of the focus groups for the strategic planning, gotten a ton of input. The next stage is that I'm going to each school with the input and the feedback to start to really solidify that vision of a graduate, which is, I think, the title we've landed on, Vision of a Graduate, as opposed to Portrait of a Graduate. So, and then in addition to that, the strategic planning categories are starting to come together. So we're in sort of the final refinement of data collection and input to reach that next stage. So we should start to see some first drafts of a vision of a graduate and some strategic planning categories like by the end of March, early April. In addition, I wanted to let this committee know, obviously all of that will come, to you as well. But I wanted to let this committee know that something that really rose out of this process so far is the need for a vision of instruction. So not just a vision of a graduate, but a corollary of vision of instruction of what we have core beliefs in RSD 13 of what instruction looks like and what it needs to be. So I found that it organically grew out of this feedback process. So I thought that was a good thing and an interesting thing.
Yeah, but our district does that, and it's very helpful. So the teacher knows themselves what kind of the expectations are versus
Yeah.
just, I'm just gonna teach.
Yeah. It makes it more of the two-way street, right?
That's good. Okay, item 10, I understand we have a student committee member.
We do. I can't, in other cases, I'd give you the whole application, but since it's a student, I can't do that. But we do have a student, Will Overton, who has put in an application to volunteer to be on the Student Achievement Committee. I would highly recommend him, and unless you have any objections, he will go forward for a board appointment tonight. But I was excited to let you know that we're gonna have a student member soon.
Sounds good.
And he came home ill, so he would have been here tonight.
Yeah.
There's a lot of illness, unfortunately,
Yeah,
still
there's-
going around.
Okay, item 11, public comment.
I actually
Yeah.
have something else I'd like to add. Elizabeth Vans, Millfield. I just pulled up, because I know there was some questions on the 4 years requirement, and can there be some flexibility with if a student were to take extra sciences in place of, say, the 4th year of English for college. I pulled up UConn, since we have such a large number of students attending UConn, either branch campus or stores, and they do require 4 years of English as mandatory for admissions to UConn. I'm a high school counselor. I've been helping students for 22 years. I help between 60 and 80 seniors every single year. And I also work at a high school that has about an 85% college attendance, which is similar to what we have. And I have not come across any college that does not require 4 years of English, so that's something to consider. In addition, the NCAA requires 4 years of English for all Division I athletes. Division II, it says 3, but they still need a certain number of units of academics in order to be eligible for NCAA. So if they were to opt for electives, and those would not fall into the academic units for NCAA qualification. So I just wanted to point that out because I failed to put that in our other comment. And then should we shift to just the 3 years of English? I ask that you consider to put in that colleges require 4 years like you did for the sciences and other things you had next to it on the chart. But English, for some reason, that space was blank. And the other ones had what colleges are either recommending or requiring, and English is next to it, has nothing. So since most, if not all, colleges require 4 years, I would highly advise that that be something added to the chart.
Yeah, we did look, so the chart has like the recommended and then in parentheses, the very basic requirement. So, but agreed.
I was
We-
talking
we-
about the
we-
words on that
Yeah,
far
right.
right.
We need to either have it consistent where it's just the parentheses or it's the words for everything. So I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
We'll make sure that aligns.
For consistency.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments?
Yeah.
Do we have anybody online?
Are there any comments, public comments from anybody online? Seeing none.
Okay, so motion to adjourn? So moved. Linda,
Second.
I'm Jamie at 5:40. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I never say it, so it's just.
Thank you for being here.
Never gonna fight it. Thank you.
Again, since we have a group here, it's about 5:40. I'm ending this Zoom. We're gonna open up the next Zoom. The board meeting will start at 6. Okay, thank you.